I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who sits in his car, staring at the house he pays for, wondering if he even belongs there anymore. But here I am. My name's Jake. I'm 38, married to Emily for the past 14 years. We have 2 kids, Maddie, 10, and Lucas, 7. On paper, we're the picture of a happy suburban family. Nice house, good schools, family vacations. But paper lies. I don't know exactly when things changed. Maybe it was slow, like a frog in boiling water. Maybe it was always there, and I was just too blind to see it. What I do know is that my wife used to look at me like I was her whole world. Now, she looks at me like I'm an ATM with bad jokes. It wasn't just the usual marriage gets boring stuff. It was deeper. The little things stopped first, the random texts during the day, the soft touch on my arm when we passed each other in the kitchen. Then, the sex dried up. She always had an excuse, too tired, too stressed, the kids might hear. I tried not to push. I figured it was a phase. Then came the attitude. I could do nothing right. If I worked late, I didn't care about the family. If I came home early, I was in her way. If I bought her flowers, she'd roll her eyes and say I was covering for something. But the real gut punch? Her family. Emily comes from money, old money. The kind where the kids grow up thinking work is something other people do. I never fit in with them. They always saw me as some poor guy who lucked into their circle. They weren't even subtle about it. Her mother, Victoria, once told me at Thanksgiving, "It's good that Emily married for love, even if it means certain sacrifices." Certain sacrifices. As in me. Her sisters, Lauren and Julia, weren't much better. They married rich, and they made sure everyone knew it. Meanwhile, I was busting my ass in a soul-sucking software job, working 60-hour weeks to keep up with the mortgage on a house that Emily had insisted on. And yet, I was the one being treated like the burden. The final straw. The moment I realized I wasn't just being taken for granted, I was being replaced. It started with the phone. Emily had always been attached to her phone, but now she guarded it like a dragon hoarding gold. She took it everywhere, even to the bathroom. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. But then she started smiling at it. That little, secretive smile. I asked once, jokingly, "What's so funny?" She locked the screen in a split second. "Just a meme," she said, brushing past me. A meme. Right. Then came the girls' nights. She never used to go out much, but now, suddenly, she had a whole social life I wasn't part of. Always last minute. Always with women I barely knew. And she always came home late, way later than made sense for a bunch of exhausted moms drinking wine. I told myself not to be that husband. The insecure, jealous one. But then she started dressing differently. Lingerie I hadn't seen in years, perfume that was a little too strong when she came home. I had 2 choices, keep pretending, or find out the truth. I chose the truth. And what I found? It changed everything. Once the doubt started creeping in, they didn't leave. It was like having a pebble in my shoe, small enough to ignore at first, but eventually, it's all you can feel. I started paying more attention. I didn't confront Emily right away. I knew if I jumped the gun, she'd just gaslight me, tell me I was paranoid, or laugh it off. No, I needed proof. Solid proof. And getting it meant going places I never thought I'd go. It began with her phone. One night, she left it charging in the kitchen while she went to shower. I wasn't planning to snoop, I swear I wasn't, but it was right there, buzzing on the counter. Some guy named Michelle had texted her. I glanced at the message. Nothing incriminating, just, "Can't wait to see you Thursday." Thursday. Girls' night. My stomach sank, but I played it cool. When Emily came back downstairs, I casually asked, "Hey, are you still meeting up with your friends Thursday?" She froze for just a second. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. "Yeah, why?" "No reason," I said, shrugging. "Just checking." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And just like that, I knew. After that, I got serious. I installed spyware on her phone. I hated myself for it, but I hated not knowing even more. I added a GPS tracker to her car and set up a small camera near the front door, hidden in the bookshelf. If she was sneaking around, I was going to catch her. It didn't take long. The texts came first. Turns out, Michelle wasn't Michelle at all, it was some guy named Eric. I saw their conversations in real time. They weren't graphic, but they didn't have to be. He called her, babe. She sent him selfies, ones she didn't take for me anymore. They talked about meeting up at a hotel. Thursday night. I felt sick. Still, I needed more. I needed to be absolutely sure before I confronted her. So, Thursday night, when she kissed me on the cheek and left in her little black dress, I waited 15 minutes, then pulled up the GPS tracker on my phone. She wasn't heading to the wine bar downtown. She was heading toward the highway. Toward the hotel. I grabbed my keys and followed her. The whole drive, I was shaking. I kept telling myself, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe I'm wrong. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I parked a block away and watched as she pulled into the hotel parking lot, stepped out of the car, and walked inside without a second's hesitation. And then Eric showed up. Tall, blonde, wearing some designer suit that screamed, "Trust fund baby." He walked up to her, and she threw her arms around his neck like she'd been waiting all her life to see him. They kissed. Right there, in front of the hotel lobby. Something inside me broke. I don't remember how long I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Maybe a minute. Maybe an hour. Time blurred as I watched my wife, wrap herself around another man like she belonged to him. I wanted to storm in, grab her by the wrist, and demand an explanation. I wanted to scream in his face, to make him feel even a fraction of the humiliation burning inside me. But I didn't. Because this wasn't just about emotion. This was about truth. Emily and Eric disappeared into the hotel, and I forced myself to stay calm. I took out my phone, snapped a few pictures of them together, and then drove away. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't going to do it blindly. She had already lied to me for God knows how long. If I wanted the upper hand, I needed more. So I waited. She came home past midnight, her hair slightly messy, the scent of expensive cologne clinging to her clothes, not mine. She found me sitting in the living room, pretending to watch TV. "Hey," she said, feigning casualness as she kicked off her heels. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "How was girls' night?" She didn't even flinch. "Oh, you know, the usual. Wine, gossip. Lauren got way too drunk again." She laughed, shaking her head. I nodded, swallowing back the bile rising in my throat. "Sounds fun." She leaned down and kissed my cheek, the same lips that had just been on him. I clenched my fists. "Not yet." "Mind if I take a shower?" she asked, already heading toward the stairs. I shook my head. "Go ahead." As soon as I heard the water running, I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app. Her GPS history showed exactly where she had been. No wine bar. No girls. Just the hotel. And that was all I needed to know. I turned off the TV, sat back on the couch, and stared at the ceiling. The marriage was over. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My wife had just come home from screwing another man and had the audacity to kiss me like nothing had happened. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, peaceful, like she hadn't just shattered everything we built. I could have woken her up right then and there. Shoved my phone in her face. Demanded answers. But I didn't. Confronting her now wouldn't change anything. She'd lie, she'd cry, she'd make excuses. Maybe even try to flip it on me. I wasn't going to give her that chance. No, I needed to be smart about this. If I was going to walk away, I was going to do it on my terms. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started planning. First, I made copies of everything, her texts, GPS data, the photos from the hotel. I transferred them onto a USB drive and stashed it in my desk at work. If this blew up, I needed leverage. Then, I started digging deeper. Emily had a second phone. I was sure of it. She guarded her primary one too closely, but there were too many gaps in her story, too many moments where she disappeared off the grid. I searched the house while she was at yoga, checking drawers, purses, even her car. And then, finally, I found it. Hidden in her gym bag, tucked inside a small pocket, was a sleek black phone I'd never seen before. I powered it on, half expecting a password screen, but she had been careless. No lock. The messages were right there. Eric, I can still taste you. Emily, you're bad. Last night was amazing. I felt my blood go cold. Eric, when can I see you again? Emily, next week. Same place. I took screenshots, forwarded everything to my email, and put the phone back exactly as I found it. Now, I wasn't just suspicious. I knew. And she had no idea that I was watching. That night, as she sat across from me at dinner, smiling, making small talk, acting like the devoted wife, I smiled back. Played my role. She didn't know it yet. But she was about to lose everything. Now that I had proof, I had to be careful. If I played this right, I could walk away with everything, my dignity, my kids, and most importantly, my revenge. Emily had no clue that I knew. She kept up her little act, pretending to be the loving wife while sneaking around behind my back. But every time she smiled at me, every time she touched me, it felt like a joke. I wanted to throw the evidence in her face, to watch her crumble under the weight of her own lies. But that wasn't good enough. She didn't deserve a confrontation. She deserved consequences. The first thing I did was lock down our finances. Emily had always relied on me to handle the bills, she wasn't even aware of half the accounts we had. I made sure she had no access to my personal savings and quietly opened a new account under my name only. I also started funneling extra money into it. She was about to find out just how much she depended on me. I needed more than just screenshots, I needed something undeniable. Something she couldn't weasel out of. Her affair with Eric was bold, but predictable. Every Thursday, same hotel. So, the next time she got ready for girls' night, I kissed her on the forehead, told her to have fun, and watched her walk out the door like I hadn't already mapped out her entire evening. Then, I followed. This time, I wasn't just sitting in my car, seething. I had a plan. I had a camera. I parked across the street, far enough that I wouldn't be seen but close enough to catch everything. And right on schedule, Eric arrived. I filmed them meeting in the parking lot, her excited little smile, the way she practically threw herself into his arms. I recorded every second as they walked inside together. Then I waited. 2 hours later, I got the final piece of evidence I needed, footage of them walking out, holding hands like a happy couple. Perfect. I didn't confront her when she got home. I let her crawl into bed next to me, let her pretend our marriage was still real. But the walls were closing in. And she had no idea. The next morning, I woke up before Emily, lying there in the quiet, staring at the ceiling. Last night, she had crawled into bed next to me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just spent the evening in another man's arms. She disgusted me. But I stayed calm. I had everything I needed, proof, a plan, and most importantly, patience. At breakfast, she hummed softly as she poured herself a cup of coffee, acting like the devoted wife. "You okay?" she asked when she caught me watching her. I smiled. "Yeah, just thinking." She had no idea how much I was thinking. I didn't change a thing about my routine. I still kissed her goodbye before leaving for work. Still responded to her texts. Still played the role of the clueless husband. But behind the scenes, I was making moves. First, I met with a divorce attorney. I laid everything out, her affair, my financial preparations, the custody of our kids. I wasn't going to lose them. Not to her. My lawyer was sharp, and with the evidence I had, she assured me that I'd have the upper hand. Then, I called in a favor. One of my old college buddies, Adam, worked in cybersecurity. I sent him everything I had, Emily's texts, her GPS logs, the hidden phone. He did a deep dive, pulling up deleted messages, tracking locations I hadn't even noticed before. What he found made my blood run cold. Emily wasn't just sleeping with Eric. There were others. A hotel 2 months ago. A different number saved under Carly. More flirty messages. More meetings. She wasn't just cheating. She was a serial liar. That night, I played my part perfectly. We sat on the couch watching TV, her legs curled up beside me, her phone in her lap. I glanced at it, and she immediately flipped it over. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated for just a second. "Yeah, just tired." "Liar." I nodded, pretending to believe her. "You know, I was thinking," I said, casually stretching my arm along the back of the couch. "We should do a little getaway. Just us." Her expression flickered, but she covered it fast. "Oh. That's sweet. But with the kids' schedules, I don't know if we can find the time." "Right. Because she was so busy." I shrugged. "Just a thought." Then I leaned over and kissed her cheek. She smiled. Forced. She didn't realize it, but she had already lost. And soon, she was going to find out just how badly. The closer I got to pulling the trigger on my plan, the harder it became to play along. Every fake smile, every casual kiss she gave me, every night she crawled into bed next to me after being with another man, it took every ounce of restraint not to snap. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing she got to me. Not yet. Instead, I pushed forward, tightening the noose. With the help of Adam, my cybersecurity friend, I dug deeper into her digital footprint. He pulled up deleted conversations, old locations, and even some financial transactions. Turns out, Emily had a pattern. She wasn't just sneaking around with Eric. She had a history of affairs, stretching back years. A charge from a luxury hotel 2 years ago, back when she told me she was visiting her sister. A flight to Miami last summer that didn't match up with the girls' trip she claimed to take. A string of messages with different men, some dating back to before our marriage had even started falling apart. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. She had never been loyal. The life I thought we had? A lie. But the real kicker? One of the names that kept coming up in her messages, John. My boss. I nearly laughed when I saw it. The same John who overworked me, underpaid me, and treated me like an afterthought. The same John who always asked about Emily at office parties, who made weird little comments about how lucky I was. Now it made sense. She wasn't just screwing random guys. She was screwing him. I felt something inside me snap. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. This was about every single person who had disrespected me, used me, played me like I was some fool. They all thought they were getting away with it. But I was about to make them pay. The next morning, I changed my approach. Instead of playing the clueless husband, I started playing a different role, the attentive husband. The suspicious husband. I watched her more closely, asked more questions. Where she was going, who she was with. I made little comments, dropped subtle hints that made her shift uncomfortably. Hey, babe, I saw a charge on the credit card from that hotel downtown last month. Weird, right? Her face paled, but she forced a laugh. Oh, that? Must have been a mistake. I'll check on it. Or when she got a text at dinner and quickly flipped her phone over, I smirked. Must be important. Who is it? She hesitated for a fraction of a second before mumbling, just Lauren. Liar. I wasn't accusing her outright. No, that would be too easy. I was making her paranoid. And by the way, she started double-checking her phone, locking doors when she took calls, and watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. I knew it was working. She could feel it. Something was coming. She just didn't know what. The more pressure I applied, the more cracks started forming in Emily's carefully constructed facade. She was getting sloppy, nervous, little things she never used to do. She checked her phone constantly, sometimes unlocking it just to stare at the screen before locking it again. She started double-checking her alibis, asking me more questions than usual. Hey, what time are you coming home tomorrow? She asked casually one morning, pretending to sip her coffee while glancing at me over the rim of her mug. I shrugged. Not sure. Might be late. Why? She smiled too quickly. No reason. Just curious. Right. Curious. I was in her head now, and she had no idea what I knew, or how much worse it was about to get for her. Knowing that she had been screwing John, my boss, made everything personal. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about disrespect. I decided to pay John a little visit. At work, I strolled into his office without knocking, something I never did. He glanced up from his desk, surprised. Jake? Everything okay? I smiled. Yeah, just wanted to touch base on a few things. I sat down across from him, watching him closely. He had that smug look he always carried, like he was the smartest guy in the room. You know, I said, leaning forward, I've been thinking a lot about loyalty lately. His expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker of something in his eyes, caution. Really? He said, forcing a chuckle. That's random. I shrugged. Not really. I mean, loyalty's everything, right? In work, in business, in relationships. I let the last word hang in the air. For just a split second, his jaw tightened. Barely noticeable. But I caught it. This bastard was guilty. I leaned back, smiling. Anyway, just something to think about. Then I stood up and walked out, leaving him to sweat. Now, he knew I was watching. Just like Emily. At home, I kept up the pressure. That night, as we got into bed, I pulled her close, something I hadn't done in a long time. She stiffened at first, but then forced herself to relax. You know I love you, right? I murmured, brushing my fingers through her hair. She swallowed hard. Oh, of course. I kissed the top of her head. Good. Then I let go and turned over, pretending to sleep. I could feel her staring at me in the dark, her breath uneven, her mind racing. She knew something was wrong. She just had no idea how bad it was going to get. Emily was cracking, and I could see it. She wasn't as smooth as she used to be. The confident, lying wife who thought she had everything under control was slowly unraveling. It started small. She became too nice, random compliments, surprise hugs, even a home-cooked meal, something she hadn't bothered with in years. She was trying to smooth things over, to throw me off whatever scent she thought I was on. But it was too late for that. One evening, as we were sitting in the living room, she got a text. I saw the flash of panic on her face before she quickly flipped her phone over. I waited a few seconds, then casually said, "Who was that?" She hesitated. "Oh, just Lauren." I nodded. "Call her." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Call Lauren," I repeated, keeping my tone even. "I haven't talked to her in a while. Let's say hi." She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the phone like it was a ticking bomb. "Oh, she said she was putting the kids to bed. Maybe later." I smiled, pretending to accept that answer. "Yeah, makes sense." She exhaled in relief, but I wasn't done. "You know, I ran into her at the store today." I watched her face carefully. It was a lie. I hadn't seen Lauren at all. Emily froze. You did?" "Yeah," I said smoothly. "She didn't mention anything about you two hanging out Thursday." "Weird, huh?" Silence. She blinked rapidly, scrambling to recover. "Oh. Well, I think she was distracted, you know how she is. She was terrible at lying under pressure." I nodded again. "Of course. Just thought it was odd." And then I let it go. Because I wanted that seed of doubt to take root in her mind. I wanted her to go to bed wondering just how much I really knew. The next morning, I did something completely out of character. I left work early. Normally, I had a strict routine. Emily knew exactly when I'd be home, which gave her the perfect window to sneak around. But not today. Today, I walked through the front door at 2:30 p.m. And guess what? She wasn't home. Her car was gone. I didn't even have to check the GPS, I already knew where she was. I poured myself a drink, sat on the couch, and waited. At 4:45, she walked through the door, makeup slightly smudged, hair messy like she had been in a hurry. When she saw me sitting there, her body went rigid. "You're home early," she said, forcing a smile. I took a sip of my drink and shrugged. "Yeah. Thought I'd surprise you." She laughed nervously. "Oh. I was just out running errands." I smiled at her, not saying a word. "Just watching." She fidgeted under my gaze, shifting from foot to foot. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I tilted my head. "Like what?" "Like." She swallowed. "Like you don't believe me." I held eye contact for a long moment, then chuckled. "Relax, Em. You look guilty or something." She laughed too loudly. "Oh my God, you're ridiculous." And then she practically ran upstairs to shower. Because she was guilty. And soon, she was going to pay for every single lie. Emily was slipping, and I could see it happening in real time. She was nervous, paranoid, probably going over every single detail in her mind, trying to figure out if I knew something. The answer was yes. And I was about to push her further. That evening, while we were eating dinner, I decided to drop a bomb. I put my fork down, looked at her, and sighed. "Emily, I need to tell you something." Her head snapped up so fast you'd think I just caught her red-handed. What?" I ran a hand through my hair like I was struggling to say it. "I feel like I've been distant lately. Distracted. I don't know, maybe I haven't been the best husband." Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She was expecting something completely different. I continued, looking down at my plate. "I just don't want you to think that I take you for granted." Then I reached across the table, took her hand in mine, and looked her straight in the eye. "If there's ever anything you need to tell me, you can. I'd rather hear the truth than be lied to." I squeezed her hand gently. "No matter what it is." She swallowed hard. For a brief second, I thought she might actually confess. She opened her mouth, then closed it, looking down at her plate. Finally, she forced a smile. "That's really sweet, Jake. I appreciate that." Liar. She wasn't going to admit it. Not yet. But the guilt was eating her alive. The next day, I did something even riskier. I baited her. I sent her a text in the afternoon. "Jake, hey, working late tonight. Might not be home until 10. Don't wait up." I watched the tracker on her phone. Not even 20 minutes later, she was on the move. She thought I was gone. She thought she was in the clear. At 7:15 p.m., her location pinged at a familiar place, the hotel. I smiled to myself, grabbed my keys, and started driving. Tonight, I wasn't just gathering evidence. Tonight, I was catching her in the act. I drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. This was it. The moment of truth. Emily thought she was slick. Thought she had outmaneuvered me. But the second she got that text saying I'd be working late, she ran straight to him. To Eric. Or John. Or whoever the hell it was tonight. I pulled into the hotel parking lot and killed the engine. There was her car, parked near the side entrance. I checked my phone, her location was still inside. Perfect. I took my time. Walked in calmly, head high. If I looked like I belonged, no one would question me. The guy at the front desk barely glanced up as I made my way toward the elevators. I already knew which room to check. She had used this hotel before, and Adam, my cybersecurity guy, had pulled some of her past bookings. She had a favorite floor. A favorite type of room. And sure enough, when I reached the hallway, I spotted a "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging on a door. That was the one. I took a deep breath, then knocked. 3 firm, deliberate knocks. Silence. Then, after a few seconds, I heard shuffling. A hesitant, muffled voice. "Who is it?" I recognized that voice immediately. Emily. I didn't answer. More shuffling. Then, finally, the door cracked open just an inch, and I saw her face. Her panicked face. The blood drained from her skin. Jake. I pushed the door open. And there he was. Lying in bed, half-dressed, looking just as horrified as she was. Eric. The same guy I had watched her sneak around with before. The same guy she had promised was just a friend. She scrambled backward, grabbing at the sheets like that would somehow make this less real. "Jake, I can explain." I laughed. Actually laughed. A deep, bitter sound. "No, Emily. You really can't." I stepped inside, calm. Controlled. The exact opposite of her. I let my eyes sweep over the room, candles, wine glasses, clothes scattered on the floor. The perfect setup for a romantic evening. Too bad for her, it just turned into the worst night of her life. Eric was still frozen, caught between fight and flight. "Dude, I cut him off." "Shut up." He shut up. I turned my attention back to Emily, who looked like she might pass out. "How long?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "Jake, please." "How long?" Silence. Then, finally, she whispered, "A year." "A full year." I nodded, letting the weight of it settle in. Then I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Say cheese," I said, snapping a photo of the two of them, her, standing there wrapped in a bedsheet, and him, sitting there looking like he wished the earth would swallow him whole. Emily gasped. "What the hell are you doing?" I smiled. "Collecting evidence." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Jake, please, don't do this. Don't do this? I echoed, shaking my head. You did this, Emily. I just made sure I caught it. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I put up a hand. Save it. You're not sorry you cheated. You're sorry you got caught. She opened her mouth to argue, but I was already done. I turned on my heel, walking toward the door. Where are you going? She called after me, voice shaking. I looked over my shoulder. Home. And then I left her there, standing in the wreckage of her own choices. I walked out of that hotel room without looking back. My heart was pounding, my hands were clenched into fists, but I felt calm. Emily's sobs faded as I made my way down the hallway, through the lobby, and out into the cold night air. I took a deep breath, letting it all sink in. She was finished. But I wasn't done yet. By the time I got home, I was already moving forward. First, I locked down the bank accounts. The joint one. I drained it and moved the money into my personal account. The credit cards. Cancelled. Any financial leverage she had over me? Gone. She wanted to play games. Fine. But she'd do it without my money. Next, I made sure she couldn't screw me over legally. I sent an email to my lawyer. Subject, it's time. I have everything we need. Let's move forward. Then I attached the photos. Emily called me 17 times that night. I ignored every single one. She texted, too. Jake, please, let's talk. I know you're mad but we can work through this. Just come home so we can fix this. Fix this? Fix what? The next morning, I finally replied. We're done. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. No response. But I knew she got the message. With Emily handled, it was time to deal with him. John, my boss. The man who had disrespected me in more ways than one. I wasn't just going to expose him, I was going to destroy him. I called a meeting with HR and the board, claiming I had concerns about ethical violations in the workplace. When they asked for details, I laid it all out. Evidence of John's personal involvement with an employee's wife, mine. Screenshots of conversations between him and Emily. A detailed timeline of his other workplace affairs, because, thanks to my digging, I found out Emily wasn't even the first. It didn't take long. By the end of the day, John was put on administrative leave. By the end of the week, he was fired. By the end of the month, his entire reputation was in shambles. And I made sure he knew exactly who was behind it. A few days after the hotel incident, Emily showed up at the house. She looked terrible, puffy eyes, messy hair, the confident woman I once knew completely shattered. Jake, she whispered, standing at the door like a ghost. Can we just talk? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Talk about what? Tears welled up in her eyes. I made a mistake. I don't want to lose you. I smirked. You didn't make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice. Repeatedly. For a year. She sobbed. Please, I'll do anything. I tilted my head. That's the problem, isn't it? Now that you've lost everything, you suddenly want to fix things. But when you had me, you threw me away. She reached for me, but I stepped back. Goodbye, Emily. And then I shut the door in her face. For good. After I shut the door on Emily, I stood there for a moment, just listening. No more lies. No more manipulation. Just silence. And then I walked away. I didn't look out the window to see if she was still standing there. I didn't check my phone to see if she sent another desperate text. I was done. But she wasn't. The texts kept coming. The calls. The voicemails where she sobbed and begged. Asterisk Jake, please. I don't have anywhere to go. Asterisk we can fix this. We can go to therapy. Asterisk the kids need us to stay together. That last one almost got to me. Almost. But I knew the truth, Emily wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for what she lost. I ignored her. With John taken down and Emily spiraling, there was still one loose end, her family. Victoria, her mother, had never respected me. Neither had her sisters, Lauren and Julia. They always treated me like an outsider, like I wasn't good enough for their precious, wealthy family. And guess what? They were just as dirty as Emily. While digging through Emily's phone records and deleted messages, I had found something interesting. Lauren and Julia were cheating on their husbands, too. And Victoria? She knew about it. Not only did she know, but she had helped cover it up. So, I did what any reasonable man would do. I sent everything, to their husbands. Screenshots. Messages. Photos. Even hotel receipts. And within days, Lauren's husband filed for divorce. Julia's husband cleaned out their joint account and took their kids to his parents' house. Victoria tried to do damage control, but there was nothing left to salvage. The perfect family she had worked so hard to maintain. Gone. Emily had been living in a fantasy where she thought I would forgive her. That somehow, we'd work things out. But reality hit hard when she got served divorce papers. And when she realized that she wasn't getting the house. That she'd be walking away with next to nothing. That her cushy lifestyle was over. She lost it. She showed up at my workplace, screaming at the receptionist until security escorted her out. She called my friends, trying to turn them against me. It didn't work. And when she finally understood that there was no coming back from this, she disappeared. Moved into a tiny apartment, drowning in regret. And me? I walked away with everything. I quit my job. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I had been secretly building my own software company for months, and now that John was out of the picture, I took his biggest clients with me. Within a year, my company had grown beyond anything I expected. I was successful. Independent. Free. And most importantly, I was finally happy. Emily had tried to break me. But in the end, she only made me stronger. With Emily out of my life and my company taking off, I finally felt what I hadn't in years, peace. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending everything was fine. No more being used, disrespected, and lied to. I had won. And she had lost. Emily tried to keep up appearances at first, acting like she was doing just fine without me. But the truth? She was sinking. She had no job. No savings. No plan. She was living in a tiny apartment, barely affording rent, and from what I heard, Eric, the guy she threw our marriage away for, he wasn't sticking around. One of my friends, who still kept tabs on her through social media, sent me a screenshot of her latest post. Asterisk, sometimes we make mistakes, and all we can do is hope for forgiveness. I laughed when I saw it. Forgiveness? Not in this lifetime. My company took off faster than I expected. The clients I stole from John's failing business brought in more clients, and within months, we were dominating the industry. John, meanwhile, was blacklisted. Nobody wanted to work with a man whose entire career ended in scandal. And Emily? She tried reaching out one last time. A long, desperate email filled with apologies, excuses, and "I miss yous." I didn't even bother responding. I just forwarded it to my lawyer. With the divorce finalized, I finally felt free. I started focusing on myself, hitting the gym, traveling, actually enjoying life. And yeah, I started dating again. No rush, no pressure. Just meeting people who actually valued me. And Emily? She was left with nothing but regret. She had played her game. She had made her choices. And in the end, she lost everything. A year ago, I was sitting in my car, staring at my house, wondering if my marriage was already dead. Wondering if I was paranoid, if I was overthinking things, if maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. Now, I'm sitting in the office of my own company, overlooking the city skyline, sipping coffee without a care in the world. Because I won. Emily's life had completely fallen apart. She lost me. She lost her cushy lifestyle. She lost the respect of her family, her friends, everyone. She tried dating after Eric left her, but word got around. Nobody wanted to be with the woman who destroyed her own marriage for a fling that didn't even last. She had to get a job, something she never thought she'd have to do. A friend told me she was working reception at a mid-tier law firm, barely making ends meet. And me? I was thriving. One night, I was out with some colleagues, celebrating another big win for my company. We were at an upscale restaurant when I heard a familiar voice behind me. I turned around, and there she was. Emily. She looked different. Not bad, just older. Tired. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and for a second, I saw something flicker across her face, regret. Jake, she breathed. Wow. You look good. I smirked. I know. She forced a laugh. I heard about your company. Sounds like you're doing well. I nodded. Yeah. Turns out, cutting dead weight really helps. She flinched, but tried to recover. Listen, I know things ended badly between us, but I just want you to know that I held up a hand. Emily, stop. She blinked. What? I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough so only she could hear. I don't care. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I smiled. You made your choices. And now, you get to live with them. Just like I get to live with mine. I grabbed my drink, turned back to my friends, and never looked at her again. Some people think revenge is about ruining someone else's life. But real revenge is moving on. Thriving. Living a life so good that they can't even imagine being part of it anymore. And that's exactly what I did. Emily. She was just a chapter in my story. But me? I had the rest of the book to write. And trust me, it's a damn good one.